Welcome to the Comicstorian channel, where we take some of your favorite video games, movies, and comic books, and we break them down into digestible bites. We present the plot lines in an audio drama, allowing you to keep up with your favorite stories. Marvel has recently started the Absolute Carnage event, and we're going to treat this very much how we did our War of the Realms event, bringing you the tie-ins and where they place into the overall plot, or at least telling you where they go. This storyline has been building up in the Venom plot, and if you want to know how we got here, then make sure you check out our Venom playlist, which will be down below. But that explains Null, the god of the symbiotes, that explains the return of Carnage, how he came back to life, and it also explains how we got here, to this very moment with Absolute Carnage Issue 1. And if you want to help us out, please consider going to our Twitter at Comicstorian. We can chat about all of your favorite Carnage moments and other storylines that you want to have us doing here on the channel. Anyway, let's start our story. The rain falls harshly on the streets of New York City as Eddie Brock pushes forward, the hood of his jacket pulling up high to hide his face, while the young boy, who doesn't know that he is his father, jogs to keep up. And then we all die. Any questions? Eddie asks, as he finishes telling the boy about his history with the Venom symbiote and the fact that Carnage is going to try to resurrect the dark god of the symbiotes, Null. Dylan responds, his eyes wide with shock and fear. He asks about the man who is trying to resurrect Null, but Eddie corrects him. Not a man, Carnage. He was resurrected by some cult that worships Null, he explains. Dylan's eyes drop and he stares in terror at the rain-soaked city around them. Anything else I should know? He asks. No, that's about the size of it. They keep moving with people passing them on the streets with their heads down. It's New York, where no one sees anyone. Eddie needs to get Dylan somewhere safe, somewhere to hold up while he figures out a plan. Carnage is hunting him down. He has to assume that Carnage could be at any turn, so they have to keep a low profile. He stops short, looking into the bright lights of the Times Square billboards, his image suddenly flashing across them as a news bulletin paints him as a wanted man and extremely dangerous. Eddie, what is this? What did you do? Dylan asks, but Eddie drops his head lower, trying to hide deeper in his hood. They need to move. He grabs the boy's hand and they begin to move quicker throughout the city streets, with him glancing back and seeing no one. But he knows that someone is there. He knows someone is following them. They pick up speed, dashing through the subway, the shadows starting to run, calling for them to stop. New Yorkers are shoved aside as Eddie snarls for them to move, pushing past, with Dylan practically stumbling down the flight of stairs as he tries to keep up with Eddie, the man that he thinks is his brother, but is actually his father. We're getting on the train, Eddie explains quickly. He's right behind us. The station tunnel is filled with lights as the subway car gets closer and closer. Eddie is so intent on their escape that he doesn't notice the man behind him look up from his paper, his red hair peeking above the print. Cassidy smiles as he shoves Eddie and his son onto the tracks, the lights of the car bearing down on him. Eddie grabs his son, trying to shield him as their end draws near, but the shadowy man that followed them arrives on the tracks, screaming for everyone to get out of his way. His body then begins to shift and morph, becoming almost liquid as it slithers out of his clothes. Eddie! It screams, I'm here! Eddie's eyes go black as the symbiote bonds to them quickly. You! But he is wrong. Us! The symbiote rears up behind them, stopping the train with its immense strength. Eddie, are you okay? Dylan asks, glancing over his shoulder, and then he's startled to see Venom standing behind him. We're fine, he tells him. Eddie stands there trying to wrap his head around the fact that he is once again bonded with the Venom symbiote, and Venom can talk again as well, which is quickly explained away by the dark magic of the War of the Realms event. If you want to know how Eddie and Venom became separated to begin with, check out our playlist down below. Can feel you resisting us, Eddie. Not bonding fully. I'm sorry. I can't do this again. I'm not strong enough. But Venom apologizes. They must be together. He is coming. The police are suddenly on the platform above them, aiming their pistols at the trio, with one yelling for Eddie to put his hands up and step away from the boy. Despite the symbiote telling him that they don't have time for this, Eddie drops the mask. Dylan, I need you to go with these men. You'll be safe, he tells the boy over his shoulder. But there's no time to argue as the subway car suddenly explodes behind them. It's him! The symbiote screams in Eddie's mind. Oh, hello, Daddy! Carnage laughs as he slides free of the car, the fire burning around his thin, otherworldly, and human body. We should catch up! He smiles, the cops spinning, not knowing who to aim their weapons at. Eddie begins to back up, trying to shield Dylan from the villain. Officers, I need you to get out of here and take the kid with you. Run like hell! Eddie tries to tell them, and his mouth elongates, showing rows of sharp teeth and a long tongue that licks out. We'll take it from here, he growls. Venom launches himself forward, attacking Carnage, his fist connecting with the monster's face, but it doesn't seem to faze him. Venom tries to warn him, tries to tell him that Carnage is now wearing the symbiote dragon, Grendel. Carnage lashes out, the blow nearly separating Venom from the symbiote. You know, Brock, I always thought you looked better in red. Carnage laughs as he begins to rain blows on Eddie's exposed head. The bones crack as the symbiote whispers into Eddie's mind. They can heal this, but they need to run. But Eddie, he refuses, trying to crawl away. This is his problem, and he'll end it right now. Carnage grabs him again, his jaw inches from Eddie's face. He threatens Dylan, stating that he'll peel back the skin from his body. Eddie screams, reaching out, grabbing the third rail of the subway. Electricity courses through his body and into Carnage. The monster screams, the symbiote flailing around as the psychopath falls. The symbiote pulls free of Eddie, its body melding into a face that stares with concern for its host. He probes him, trying to wake him up. Dylan jumps down, trying to lift Eddie up, questioning whether he's all right. I'm alive. Don't know how, but we gotta go, he tells them, so the two of them turn, leaving Carnage on the ground. The symbiote reforming as the body gently laughs beneath it. The rain falls down around them as the two of them make their way back into the streets, with Dylan turning, realizing that Eddie is sagging slightly, and he hasn't said a word since they left. Eddie is asleep, but he'll be okay, Venom tells the boy, the strange voice coming from Eddie's lips startling Dylan. We've placed him into a coma while we repair his body, Venom tells him. The two of them then arrive at their destination, with Eddie suddenly coming back, looking around surprised. Dylan asks where are they, and Eddie finally realizes where the symbiote took them. They go inside of the apartment building, and Eddie quickly knocks on apartment 616. The man who answers the door takes one look at the rain and blood-soaked pair before shouting over his shoulder, Parker, it's for you! Later, Spider-Man leans forward in the diner booth after Eddie explains everything to him. I hate symbiote stuff so much, he groans as he rubs his head. Just so much. It ain't great over here either, Eddie growls as he leans back in his booth, his hood pulled deep over his sunglasses that cover his eyes. He thanks Spider-Man for meeting them, and he asks if he can even help. When did you start fighting gods? Spidey asks. You come to me with Carnage and gods, and Carnage has godlike powers, he jokes, asking whatever happened to the good old-fashioned evil businessman. Eddie just growls, starting to get up, stating that he knew that this was a mistake. Both Spider-Man and the symbiote tell him to sit back down. Spidey tries to ease the situation, asking if Eddie wants coffee or anything to eat. My other provides me with everything I need. I don't get hungry. Why is everything horrible with you? Spidey asks him. He tries Dylan, asking him the same question, but the young boy just glares at him, trying to tell him not to talk to him, and calls him a menace. Spidey just leans back, exasperated. This is great. You guys are great. Eddie smiles, placing his hand on the boy's shoulder. He's a good kid. After Dylan goes and sits at the counter, the two of them get into it, Spider-Man questioning whether Dylan knows that Eddie is even his father because, I'm hearing a lot of Eddie and not a lot of Dad, he whispers. Eddie explains that he hasn't told him yet, that if he tells him, then it all becomes real, and the kid is stuck with me. Conversation is then cut short as Eddie glances at the news report that just popped up on the TV. The reporter tells of a mass grave that has been found in New Jersey, with many of the victims having been dead for years. Several images of the victims' identities pop up on the screen, and anger flashes through Eddie. Spider-Man pulls away, trying to figure out what has gotten Eddie so mad. You don't see it? General Ross, Fortunato, the Life Foundation? He practically shouts. The grave is full of people who have worn symbiotes and died. It's a message to me from Cassidy. He frowns. Even if they're dead, they're a target. Even Annie, his ex-wife. Dylan looks up, wanting to know who that is, when suddenly the door to the diner bursts inward and two men in ski masks holding guns shout for everyone to stay down. One of them shrinks back against a wall when they see who's standing before them, though. Flip a coin? Spidey asks. Nah, you got it, Eddie says with a shake in his hand before turning back to Dylan. Come on, you can finish Spider-Man's fries. As Spider-Man flips in, disarming the robbers, tying them up, Eddie finishes explaining that Carnage is after everyone who has ever worn a symbiote. The last robber falls, and Spider-Man leans over their webbed bodies. When the police come, tell them I said something funny. I have a reputation to uphold. It's decided that they need someone who can build a machine to extract the remaining symbiote cells from someone's body. Eddie sighs. He knows someone. Later, Eddie and Dylan swing over to one of Rex Strickland's former safe houses. Walking through the door, the group sees a stretched out man with a strange helmet leaning over a piece of machinery. "Hello, Eddie. I received your call." Maker calls from his work. "So Cassidy is finally making his move." Eddie looks up at the vast machine sitting in the warehouse, questioning what it does. The Maker turns, stretching so that he sits in front of Brock. "You require a machine that can extract the codexes from their respective hosts without killing them. I built it 35 days ago," he tells him. He works for some people who have an interest in seeing the symbiote made whole again. "Maker, real soon you and I are going to have an intense conversation about what you're planning." And the Maker smiles. "If you say so." Spider-Man then suddenly arrives with a child in tow. "Oh look, a Spider-Man," Maker sighs. Eddie quickly introduces the two with Spider-Man offering his hand. "My name is Reed Richards," the Maker explains, ignoring Spider-Man's hand. "What? Like, really? Wait, what? How? Really?" Spider-Man stammers. Maker explains that he is from a younger alternate dimension. Peter introduces the boy that he brought along with him, his godson, Normie. Eddie tries to comfort the boy, explaining that they are simply going to remove the piece of the symbiote that he was infected with. Maker steps forward, a needle in his hand. But before he can put Normie into the machine, he needs a sample. But Spider-Man is suddenly standing there. "I'm not putting my godson into a machine before I know that it's safe," he tells him. Maker just sighs, assuring them that his calculations are correct. But if they don't want to test the boy in the machine, then "You can go fetch me someone else with a codex," he orders them. He suggests a highly dangerous, rather obvious choice that Cletus Cassidy would be targeting. He then smiles as he finishes his sentence. "I don't suppose you have anyone like that in mind." Later, lightning is flashing over the rooftops of Ravenloft Institute for the Criminally Insane. John Jameson walks down the darkened corridor, the sounds of gently singing and laughter echoing past the cells that house the worst criminals. He turns at a sound as flashlights shining. "All right, everyone's clear. You can come out now," he says into the darkness. "John Jameson, you're a lifesaver," Spider-Man says as John shines his light up into a darkened corner, revealing the wall crawler and Venom smiling back at him. He goes for his gun, calling for Spider-Man to look out, but a quick webbing and explanation calm the guard down. Quickly, the group moved through the halls, heading to Norman Osborn's cells. It was months ago that Norman Osborn infected himself with the last remnants of the Carnage symbiote. Once he was defeated, Norman's mind was shattered, and the villain actually believed himself to be Cletus Cassidy. The three of them are standing outside the cell door when finally Venom steps forward. "All right, how are we doing this? Do you have an override, or am I ripping the door off the hinges?" Spider-Man tells him to hold up. They need Norman sedated before they can even think about moving him. Suddenly, Spider-Man doubles over as his spider sense goes crazy, and they both turn to see John's body beginning to shift and morph. "I'm sorry," he struggles, looking up with red eyes. "He's in my head. I have to get him out." The guard turns, drawing his pistol, firing it at the door's control panel. The alarms begin to blare, the sound amplifying in the dark hallways, the sound waves piercing through Venom. The symbiote begins to writhe in pain on Eddie, screaming in his head. Spider-Man knocks John to the ground, trying to get control of him. But the man is just babbling about releasing God. Deeper in the prison, Cletus is walking through the hallways, his mere presence seemingly driving the inmates even crazier. He reaches into his chest, pulling the symbiote aside to reveal the red maggots wriggling in his exposed chest cavity. He pulls them free in handfuls, flicking them at the prisoners as he passes their cells. The maggots are latching on, biting into the flesh of the inmates and burrowing deep. One by one, the cell doors begin to fly off their hinges as the maggots take hold and inject their hosts. Eddie falls to the ground, the symbiote still screaming in pain inside of his head. He calls for Peter's help, but the hero is still trying to tie up John before he can change into a werewolf. "Fine, I'll do it myself," Eddie growls, reaching for John's fallen gun, and Eddie and Venom scream in unison as he fires the gun, destroying the speakers that surround them. The sound lessens and the symbiote calms, forming once more around Eddie. But Venom doubles again, and Peter is at his side. He's screaming inside of my brain," Eddie explains. "It consents them." Strange noises start coming from down the hallway, and the two look up, and at first it sounds like a plague, like a swarm of beetles clacking against the concrete, and then they realize it's not bugs, it's teeth. Carnage laughs as he and the infected come at the heroes, their jaws opening and closing with the clicks of their teeth. That's when Spider-Man realizes, we gotta save Norman. Venom pumps himself up as the infected get closer, and he prepares for a fight. "All right, Webhead, you ready?" "Where's Cesare when we need him?" Spider-Man sighs, and suddenly the wave is on them, the jaws snapping, the fist cracking against bone and flesh. Venom is alive now, making Eddie feel stronger than he has in months. They begin to overwhelm them, his arm morphing into a blade ready to pierce the throat of the closest infected to him. Hey! Spider-Man yells, tossing aside his own infected. These are innocent people! They're murderous psychopaths that were indicted by a jury of their peers! Venom snarls. You know what I mean! No killing! Spidey orders them. The two keep fighting, trying to come up with a plan, when suddenly an inhumanly long arm lashes out, wrapping itself around Spider-Man's throat. Hello, little bug! Carnage laughs as he pulls the hero from the crowd, tossing the wall crawler across the hall, slamming him hard enough into Norman's cell door to knock it off its hinges. Well. Norman smiles as he leans forward, a blade hidden behind his back. Isn't this a treat? Venom flies into the room, kicking Norman in the face and launching him back. We're trying to save you, dummy! He snarls, quickly grabbing the fallen door and slamming it back into place, holding it there with his body. I'll hold the door, you get us out of here! He snarls, but when Spider-Man questions him, don't be clever, be strong! The infected keep pounding against the door as Spider-Man crosses the room. This is gonna hurt, he sighs as he webs up his hand and begins to punch the 3-foot-thick concrete walls. Venom cheers him on as every blow is against that wall, and Spider-Man's web and costume begin to shred. Blood begins to drip, and the infected keep pounding on the door. Enough! Carnage snarls as he kicks in the door, sending it, Venom, and Spider-Man against the far wall. His symbiote slithers in, taking the unconscious body of Norman Osborn in its embrace. The symbiote then begins to slither inside of Norman, turning his eyes red, and he smiles up at Spider-Man. I'm not here to kill. I'm here to make friends, Cletus tells them as Norman Carnage turns looking at them. And that is issue 1 of Absolute Carnage. Now, we're already bringing you the Web of Venom chapters. There are some side ones involving Absolute Carnage Scream, and then we have Absolute Carnage Separation Anxiety. There's an Absolute Carnage Deadpool coming out. Tons of tie-ins, and we're going to cover it all just like we did with War of the Realms. A mostly weekly basis to let you keep up to date with the insanity that is going on in the Marvel Universe right now. Now, don't forget, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that bell in the corner because it'll let you know when the next videos in this series are coming out. YouTube's doing a very poor job of letting our subs know when videos come out, so we're trying to correct that by letting you know. Hit that little bell in the corner. You can also go check out our Twitter at Comicstorian, where you can tell me your favorite parts of the Absolute Carnage event, and we can figure out the best videos to put out next together as a team. Anyway, thank you guys so much for your support, and I will see you next time right here.